Hey guys, Amanda here. I wanted to take a few minutes and just share a couple of my thoughts on the content that you reviewed in the lecture for week two, discussing productivity and procrastination. Arguably, this is some of the more important content that we're going to talk about this semester because figuring this out early on, as opposed to in weeks 15 and 16, is really, really key to you being successful. I think everyone's definition of productivity and procrastination are different. And so being really honest with yourself as you kind of think through some of this is really important. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the phrase that I'm a great time manager. I've heard this before from students in my office. I have encountered this when I was teaching high school. I encountered it in the business world when I was working there. And my response, actually, what I've learned is looking busy and being productive are very, very different things. As I was kind of thinking through what I wanted to say, it was taken back to the days that I was a waitress and thinking about all of the things that we were required to do, take care of our tables, but all of the side work that we were assigned to do while our shift was going on, and then also the closing shift work. And if you could, get ahead in some of that stuff, you might have less to do. And when it came time to close, and I just remember watching some of my coworkers like standing around, literally making themselves look busy so they wouldn't have to do anything and have all of this work to do at the end of the night. And it just reminded me of this exact thing, trying really hard to look busy so that, you are not being, get in trouble with the manager versus all of the things that you could have been doing during that time so that you could get out of there real quick. It's funny. And I think a lot of us think we're being really productive when we're looking busy and really we're not getting anything done. And so thinking through some times where maybe you were just trying to look busy so that you wouldn't get in trouble versus being productive and what the outcome would have been if you had been productive is sometimes an interesting kind of train of thoughts. A lot of the content in this week is all about you figuring out how you can be more productive. And in order to do that, you really need to know how much time that you have, which requires you to really ID what distracts you. What are the things that make you procrastinate? And I think when you're doing this, it's super important to be honest with yourself about what distracts you as well as how important that distraction is to you. One of the things I would encourage you to do is write these things down, what makes you procrastinate, and see if you can identify any of those which you might have control over. A lot of people are going to say that their cell phone or their tablet and getting on social media or playing games is their number one distraction. It's what makes them procrastinate. But if you are that person who is also responsible of caring for a sibling full-time or maybe a sick parent full-time, do you really have control over whether or not you have to keep your phone on you? So being honest with yourself about those things and then thinking through maybe some ways that you can not eliminate, but minimize the amount of time that phone's around you during certain periods of the time. That's addressing those things that you do have a little bit of control over first. Being honest with yourself again about whether or not you can give it up is super important. Yeah. Let's say if you're not ready to give it up, I don't know what to tell you. But once you've identified what those things are that force you to procrastinate, that distract you, and have also decided, which of those things you can give up, the other thing that you need to do to figure out how much time you have is identify what your commitments are. Commitments are going to be, the time that you're scheduled in class to sit down synchronously or go to lab, sleeping, eating, driving if you're going to campus. It's work. It's maybe a regular volunteering shift that you have with an organization or a hospital, or maybe it's taking care of your little brothers and sisters after school, whatever it is. Identifying where those fit into your day-to-day life really helps you determine just how much time you have left to dedicate to studying. Because if it isn't a lot of time, then you have to be really productive during that time. And if it is a lot of time, you should still be really productive during that time so that hopefully you can finish early and get to some of those distractions that you're not willing to give up. Once you figure that out, that's when you start to schedule that study time, right? That's when you tap into that study cycle, IDing where's the 30 minutes to an hour prior to a synchronous lecture that you can do your pre-lecture prep. Where's the 30 minutes to an hour after that synchronous lecture is over that you can review the content? And is there time later on, maybe the next morning or in the evening, that you can go through the content that was really difficult for you to understand, rewatch the lecture, wherever? If you can pinpoint these things and get yourself on a weekly routine about when you're incorporating your pre-lecture and post-lecture prep for each of the classes that you're taking, you're going to be in a really good spot come midterms, and for the final exams. So if this is ever something that you want to work on, creating a block schedule, which you are going to do for homework, I am happy to sit down with you because I do really enjoy scheduling. That brings me to your homework. This week, we are doing a homework assignment called Personalizing Productivity, and it's a two-sider. So the PDF is linked in the assignment. You'll have to go in and find it. And you can, if you have a version of Adobe that'll allow you to type right in here, great. Otherwise, you can print it out and then write on it yourself and then take a photo and re-upload it when you go to turn it in. If you do that, I'm going to ask that you make sure that the photo is very clear and that I can read your handwriting. So make sure it's not super tiny and that I can't blow it up. And then also make sure it's a type of file that I can access. Some students were submitting things last year that I couldn't have access to. And so chasing them around to get the file was really frustrating. So the first thing you're going to do is rank your top 5 priorities in order of importance. This might be getting an A in all of my classes, working 10 hours a week to pay for gas and, food, I don't know, getting 30 minutes of exercise a day, whatever your priorities are. I would try and be as specific as possible, but also keep in mind that this is something that you're hopefully designing for a semester. Once you do that, I want you to look back at your first priority and then think about the way that you're spending your time right now. I know this is hard because we're only really in the second week of school, but do your priorities line up with what you're doing on a daily basis? If you tell me it's really important to get all A's in your classes, but you're dedicating literally no time to studying outside of sitting down for your synchronous lectures, that priority doesn't really line up with the choices that you're making. So I want you to think about your priorities, as well as what your scheduling is looking like now, and answer this question. There's another question about balance. So kind of getting you to think about the future. What could you do in the future to make sure that there's balance? Because it's so important, especially now, while we're all kind of packed into one house or apartment or wherever it is that you're doing this. Maybe you're going to the library every day and trying to focus. Well, we know that there are things going on, outside of our control in the world, in our country, in our city. So balance is really important. Once you've outlined your priorities, done an evaluation of whether or not what you're doing really lines up with what you're saying is important to yourself, and considered ways to incorporate balance, I want you to take all of that and come up with what your schedule should really look like, right? So it doesn't go through the night. I obviously know that you guys are going to be sleeping, but I do expect for you to fill this in 7 a.m. to midnight every day. You can use, if you're someone who doesn't wake till 9, you can color both of these in and say, sleeping, up, shower, eat breakfast, synchronous lecture from 10 to 11, be deliberate about what this looks like. This is a tool for you. This shouldn't be about rushing through it just to get it submitted. I want to see that you're really thinking through the study cycle and allowing time before and after when synchronous lectures meet, to really prepare for those lectures. I want to see that you're setting aside adequate amount of time to go through your asynchronous courses on a weekly basis and not just packing them all in before they're due. I will provide feedback on this. And then, as always, if you have questions, definitely reach out. And lastly, make sure you check the rubric before you complete the assignment so you know what I'm looking for in terms of grading. All right, guys, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. I will see you later.